Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive's post-podcast show coming off of UFC's live. Marquardt versus Johnson. No, wait, Marquardt versus Story. Story versus Brent. No, we're going to finish with UFC live. Congo versus Barry. What an event. This is one of those the good, the bad, and the ugly type events. It had all of them, I think more ugly than anything, including my predictions. And let's just face facts. I went 3-5 and really struggled on this night. It was just not a good showing. Not my worst, as that distinction is still held by Strikeforce Fedor versus Silver, where I went 1-4. 3-5 with one of those wins still tentatively up in the air. Charles Oliveira defeating Nick Lentz. That fight up for grabs, as I actually missed the fight. I haven't got a chance to watch it since, but there was an illegal knee followed by a Charles Oliveira submission. For me personally, I think the fight should stand. The referee made a mistake. Don't punish the fighter. He shouldn't have done the knee, but at the same time, if it happens, it happens. I think back to Kevin Burns versus Anthony Johnson. Burns eye-poked Johnson. He had needed surgery over. That fight was never turned over. And as a direct result of the actual illegal maneuver, Burns was rewarded a TKO victory, I believe. Double-check that, but I'm almost 100% sure that is correct. So again, I don't think Oliveira should be turned over, win, lose, or draw. And I had a debate with people, and I felt the reason I picked Oliveira to beat Nick Lentz, even though Lentz has been ripping things up, was simply because Lentz's strong points puts Oliveira in a good position. Lentz is a good wrestler. He puts guys on the mat. Oliveira loves being on the mat. And if it gets to the point where Oliveira threatens Lentz too much and they wind up on the feet, advantage Oliveira there too. So he got the victory. I got fight tonight as well, which is very interesting. I would suspect the way the UFC works, these two will have a rematch, and with the quality of the fight that I'm hearing it was, and I'll definitely get it when I get a chance to finally get to watch it, we're probably going to see this fight, a rematch, down the road a little bit on a card of some, probably a free card, but a card of some nature. Other quick notes and tidbits, because there's lots of interesting stuff coming out of this show. Michael Johnson looked good in his first round victory, knockout-wise. Daniel Roberts versus Rich Antonito. Antonito looked good. Roberts looked okay early, but Antonito just wore him down. Joe Lozon versus Kurt Warburton. Lozon, I picked Lozon to win. He did get the job done. Good for him. Nasty Kimura. I think there was a triangle mixed in there. Very good. I think he hurt Warburton. Either way, it just seems like Lozon, he wins those fights, those lower-level fights. He gets promoted to fight someone next, a little bit higher up, and can't get the job done. So hopefully we'll see, Lozon having some success consecutively in a row. Joe Stevenson versus Javier Vasquez. I'm going to touch upon this in a second. Vasquez gets the win. I don't want to spoil it there. Stevenson, very disappointing. Tyson Griffin making his featherweight debut just like Stevenson was. He defeated Manny Gambarian 2-29-28 and 29-29, which is interesting. So a very close fight. And Gambarian was rated a fairly high featherweight, so Griffin, good for him. That will probably get him into my top 10 contenders list, which on my rankings, you have the champion and the next 10 guys in the UFC. He'll probably be in the middle of that pack, probably lower middle, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. So I went 2-3 on the preliminaries, onto the main card, and boy, did it not go well. Matt Mitrione versus Christian Morecraft. Mitrione knocked him out in the second round. Morecraft, my biggest fear, and I said it in my prediction, or I talked about it at least, was Morecraft was going to need to make this a dirty fight, get in tight, and get a hold of Mitrione. He just was unable to. Mitrione looked so big and strong, even though Morecraft was technically the bigger man. Got away from him, shrugged him off, was able to get up, and I'm going to talk about something else happened in this fight, didn't agree with. But Mitrione looking good. It's time to get a challenge. If Brendan Schaub wasn't facing Big Nog, I'd like to see Schaub and Mitrione mix it up, and I'm sure Matt will be getting another opportunity. He's just a likable dude, and I really enjoy listening to him after his fights. Welterweight bout between John Howard and Matt Brown. I had Howard to take out Brown. Originally, this was Howard Campman. Howard defeated by Brown by decision, all three 29-28s. Not a lot to say about this fight. Just definitely did not enjoy it. One thing I found interesting at the end is they actually flashed up the winner graphic before the announcement, so that a faux pas in the UFC's technical department. Either way, but Brown gets the victory. Howard's now dropped 3-0. Brown saves his job. I could see Howard because he is an entertaining guy and he goes out and fights, getting at least another fight. He's a type of guy, though, I think would do very well in Strikeforce, as they need more fighters to go there, I think, for the welterweight division to help keep that afloat. He would make for an interesting fight, especially against a guy like Paul Daly. Welterweight co-main event. Rick Story versus Charlie Brenneman. Wow, this fight was originally Anthony Johnson, Nate Marquardt, so I don't know what to tell you there. I'm going to talk about this more in a little bit, but Brenneman walking in and stealing Story's thunder, 29-28, all three. I'll talk about this fight a little bit more after my predictions are done. Heavyweight bout, Congo Barry, absolutely crazy. You got to wonder, and of course I'm going to touch upon this too, the stoppage should have been, could have been, who knows. All we know is Congo got the win, Barry got the loss, and that's the only main card correct fight I got right. Fight of the night bonus, or fight of the night, as I said, went to Lance Oliveira. Knock of the night, obviously check. Congo submission night, Joe Lozon. That should have been not a great fight night. Left a bad taste in my mouth anyway, just because of a couple things I saw either way. I'm going to talk about some of the interesting issues coming out of this. All right, so we talked about my predictions. I went 3-5. It was not a good night. Can't deny it. Hopefully we'll be rebounding this weekend at UFC 132. Now, there's a whole pile of things I want to talk about. That's why I spent only a few minutes on the predictions. First thing is Joe Stevenson. I think it's time. Stevenson did not look good against Javier Vasquez. He dropped the featherweight. This was the type of fight. He was a heavy favorite. He was expected to come into this fight, win, get himself back on the map, get himself back rolling. He just looked poor. Javier Vasquez was standing right in front of Stevenson taking big, deep breaths. And unfortunately, I don't know what the problem was, Stevenson was not doing what his corner was asking him. Greg Jackson was saying, shoot for takedowns, push the pace, get on this guy, be aggressive. And all Stevenson did was sit there and use head movement, duck, bob, and weave. He was barely throwing any leg kicks, which the odd one he did throw connected and was effective. But he wasn't doing anything. He seemed tentative against a guy who wasn't, it's not a great striker, and was visibly fatigued. Stevenson needed to get in there, put him on his butt, and try and finish. He didn't even seem at the end of the fight like he was really overly aggressive, fighting to save his job. I think it's time for Joe Stevenson, Joe Daddy, to go along, because if he can't beat Javier Vasquez, take nothing away from Vasquez, he's a very good fighter, but if he can't beat Javier Vasquez, he doesn't stand much of a chance against the rest of the competitors in the featherweight division. It's time for Joe Daddy to move on, maybe even hang him up. Next up, brutal stand-ups. Two of them, same referee, Mark Matheny. Who is this guy? I don't know what was going on. The first one was Matt Mitrione, Christian Morecraft. These two guys, very quick, were on the mat, finding Morecraft, who was taking a beating from Mitrione, got knocked down, was in trouble. And I'm not just saying this because I had Morecraft. Morecraft's on top. He's controlling Mitrione. He's punching him in the ribs. He's slowly advancing his position. He's getting his win back. He's, this is his fight now, and the referee's yelling at him, show me something, show me something, show me something, and then stands them up while Mitrione's being punched in the ribs. That was total bullshit. It really was. I did not, I don't like when referees in any sport, whether it be this, hockey, football, anything, try to put the spotlight on themselves. These competitors work hard. They're in there doing what they can, doing their best, and you're standing them up and telling them you're not giving them an opportunity to do their game plan. The thing that makes me so mad is that if a striker, or two guys are standing on their feet and one guy is visibly avoiding the other guy, throwing the odd jab and circling and not hitting, the referee's never going to stop the fight and say, okay, you get on your back, you get on top, okay, restart, go. That'll never, ever happen. But here's the situation. Mitrione finally got caught. This kid got tagged a couple times. He gets a chance to take a quick breath, get on top, and go to work. And he wasn't doing a heck of a lot. I'm not gonna try and call a spade, but he was delivering a couple rib shots. He was starting to, take advantage of the fact he finally got him down. Okay, let's go to work. And he gets stood up by this idiot referee, Mark Matheny. You're not helping the sport. You're not making yourself look good. Show me action, show me action. And then that wasn't even the worst stand-up of the evening. Fast forward to Story Brenneman. Rick Story is working a triangle. He's slowly advancing. This guy's now he's behind in the rounds. He needs to finish the fight. He's working a triangle on Brenneman. He's working, and Matheny, show me something, guys. You're not doing anything. And he stands him up. What's this guy expect? The only thing you do on the ground is punch? Give me a break. Give me a break on this fight. I don't care. I didn't have a prediction for this fight. Story Brenneman didn't matter to me either way. But Rick Story's working a submission hold, and the guy stands him up. Why? I don't know. Maybe he doesn't understand what MMA is. But either way, that guy should have been reprimanded right there and then. And as far as I'm concerned, he should have some kind of, something should be done with that. He should not be allowed in there again until that is correct and he understands what he did wrong. But he just seemed to have an attitude about himself that he was controlling the fight. He was the most important person of the three inside the octagon, and he will dictate what goes on. Let them fight. Fights are far better when you let them fight. If a guy's laying on top of someone and doing absolutely nothing for a prolonged period of time, by all means, stand them up. but don't do it mid-submission or when the guy just gets him down after being rocked and is slowly starting to get going. Give me a break, ref, and get a brain. Secondly, sticking with the Rick Story Charlie Brenneman fight, disappointing. I had an inclination heading into that fight that Brenneman might have a chance to pull off the upset, and there's so many things. I didn't put a bet on it, or I didn't have a prediction for it, but there are so many things playing into this. Was Story affected by only fighting on a couple weeks' notice? Was Story affected by the fact that his opponent was changed, and it wasn't just changed as in, it's not Nate Marquardt a week before the fight. We're talking a couple, very short period of time before the fight, a significant thing. Marquardt fired, and now you've gone from a guy who's a BJJ guy and stand-up fighter to another wrestler in Charlie Brenneman. Credit for Brenneman to step up and take that fight. I give him a lot of props for stepping in there. He won the fight, yes, but all he did for the most part was take Story down and control him. Rick Story was unable to defend the takedowns. He looked out of his element. I wonder if the question of him suddenly becoming the favorite. Here's a guy when he fought Johnny Hendricks was a slight underdog. When he fought Thiago Alves, again, the lesser known of the two, a slight underdog in that sense. Now he's the favorite. He's the big name. He's the one that needs to be talked up, and he doesn't. He comes out flat. Don't count this kid out. He will be back. The guy's young. He's a beast. Charlie Brenneman, what's next for him? I don't know. Hopefully he can capitalize on this. Hopefully he can get himself into a position to make a run at some level of success in the welterweight division. Either way, good on him for the win. Rick Story comes back. Don't you worry. Rick Story fans. Main event, Congo Barry. Wow, that was unbelievable. Barry tagged him several times, dropped him a couple times. Congo could have been out. I don't know. Maybe he was out. Kept powering through, kept coming back, and then bang, bang, a 1-2 along the cage, drops Barry over. That fight was fantastic. And I like Pat Barry, and I can't stand Czech Congo, and I had Congo, so I was just like, whip-de-doo, Congo won. I wouldn't mind seeing him get knocked out by Barry either way, because Barry was aggressive and going for the kill, which I loved. One thing, I think Congo looked fantastic in that fight, even until he got tagged. His movement was excellent. He was bouncing around. He looked much better. He definitely looked like a guy who had back issues before the fight, or in his previous fights before he had the surgery and got things fixed. I think, unless that's 2 fights in a row now where he's got knocked out, or at least taken a shot on the chin and crumpled. Frank Mir and now this one, so I wonder how his chin situation is. But either way, he looked good. Hopefully he can get back and continue to have success, because everybody pushes him. He looks like a superhero. He's ripped. He's a giant beast of a man. It only adds to the heavyweight division. It makes things look fun when he gets in there and goes against big-name guys. Now, besides obviously the big knockout for that fight, I think one of the coolest things was one of the angles showed, especially in the replay, it showed an excellent angle of it, was the reactions of the ring girls. Ariane Celeste seemed to just be very excited that Congo won the fight, was kind of like, oh my goodness. Brittany Palmer, on the other hand, turned away, covered her face. She looked like she just saw someone get shot in the head. She just was mortified by the fact, and I'm attributing this, I think I've read places that her and Pat Barry are friends, maybe going back to some WEC connections, with Pat Barry potentially being at some events. I don't know. But either way, maybe, you just assume fighters get close with other people associated with the fighting business. So she seemed very upset. Chandela, I couldn't read her reaction. She seemed to cover her eyes, cover her mouth. Just kind of one of those like, oh my goodness, what is going on? What just happened? It was a significant thing. And of course, Joe Rogan, slack-jawed at ringside, could not believe. I think there's a clip of him out there with his jaw dropped in complete shock. And that fight has capabilities of being one of the biggest knockouts of all time. Certainly one of the greatest comebacks of all time. Definitely in the running for knockout of the year. We will see how things turn out because there's a lot of fighting left, including this weekend. And another big thing was the bad reffing situation, or bad reffing, good reffing. Dan Miragliotta, we hear people, they played it up and be like, oh, Dan Miragliotta, fantastic job. Would people have complained if Miragliotta, he almost did, he almost jumped on Barry and pulled him off right off the bat when he dropped Congo. Would people have complained if he had stopped it then? Probably not. There were multiple times he could have stopped it. It was one of those situations I don't think he could have done wrong. Maybe I'm wrong in saying that. But it just seemed like, Barry had Congo in a whole world of trouble, and he probably could have stopped him, and he would have totally justified, because we've seen fighters with less, taking less beatings get stopped. Like I remember that Chris Lieben and Aaron Simpson stoppage where the referee stopped the fight when Simpson was on the other side of the cage. He just took a Brock Lesnar type stumble, fall, trip across the cage. Lieben was nowhere near him, but had definitely clocked him, and the referee just stopped the fight and said, no, that's it. So, Big Dan, good on him. At least he comes out, because the guy does get a lot of bad press, and he makes some questionable calls, but at least he comes out, hopefully, for the most part, looking decent in this. And finally, the overhanging situation of this event. Nate Marquardt being not just removed from the main event, removed from the promotion altogether. Dana White saying, "You're fired, that's it. I'm disgusted with you." He actually said that in an interview. Nate Marquardt, today's Tuesday, he made his announcement today that he was suffering from a low testosterone originally, took a treatment for his matchup with Dan Miller back at UFC 128, and had been unable to get his high testosterone levels back in the proper range. He claimed in a statement that before the fight, he had got them in there, he had got them in the proper range. It didn't seem to matter. Dana fired him. I don't know. If Nate Marquardt comes back, and of course, from what I read, this is a statement from Marquardt. Of course, he's going to plead on the side of looking out for his best interest. He made the statement that it was a doctor-prescribed treatment. Well, if he comes back with all these things saying Nate has to have this stuff, and it was talked about UFC 128, and he probably had to get it cleared, medically cleared, and acknowledged heading to that fight, and Dana just ups and fires him for a health concern. If that is the case, and here I'm giving Nate the benefit of the doubt, maybe that makes Dana look bad. I was actually on Bloody Elbow the other day reading some great site, by the way, reading an article about multiple fighters that Dana White has said, "You're fired, you're done, see you later," and the majority of them have come back. BJ Penn, Tito Ortiz, John Fitch, all these guys have come back, after having some kind of final removal from the company. They're back, they're fighting. Paul Daly, the only one not there, but now he's fighting under a Zuffa, hadn't got a title shot after the Zuffa company took over, or it was still in the works, whatever. Either way, Nate has made it very clear he would like to return to the UFC. He knows this was not taken care of properly. This was not done, things did not work out. But either way, I hope Nate can get things straightened up. I like Nate Marquardt. I'd like to see him back in the business. I had Rick Story to win that fight, but I'd like to see Nate Marquardt back. He's a good fighter. He brings a lot to the division, whether it be 170 or 185. Either way, Nate, get things straightened out, get back in the octagon ASAP. Now, Dana White. Do not get me wrong here. I'm a huge Dana White fan. I was at the Toronto Expo. I watched him hand out all kinds of stuff. The guy's a great guy. He's done so much for the company. But I really don't. There's some things that just make me cringe. And I hear this business about he just fires Nate Marquardt without hearing anything. You know what? In a situation like this, hold off on judgment right away. I know it's a private company. They can do whatever the heck they want. They can have whatever fighters they want and do not want. But you know what? Hold off until everything gets announced. It just drives me insane when I hear, well, he's been fired. What for? Well, we can't say what for. Okay, well, why don't you wait until you can say what for? Why don't you say something like, Nate Marquardt has been suspended pending a full further investigation, something like that. You know what? In the NHL, like Dana White and the UFC, their quest is to become a professional sports league that competes with the other big four, big three, whatever you want to call it, the Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, and NHL. It's never going to happen if stuff like this continues on. You will never see Gary Bettman or Bud Selig or any of those guys, or any of the commissioners of these major leagues say, "Oh, Albert Pujols suspended for life. You can never come back because of it. You tested positive for something." Or in hockey, Sean Avery, Matt Cook, you hit someone illegally. You've potentially ended their career. Like Mark Savard is in big trouble with Boston with a head injury. You're done, gone. Never want to see you again. It doesn't work like that. Dana, what you need to have some kind of professionalism, some kind of judgment, and maybe and I read this in an interview and it kind of bothers me. Dana made a statement in some interview, no source again, take it for what you want to take it. He said it helps if I'm your friend and I like you. If I like you, it's going to help your stance in the company. That shouldn't be the case. I don't think anyway. You shouldn't have to kiss ass to make it somewhere. You should be able to get by on your merits and your abilities as a fighter. And sure, Nate screwed up. Suspend Nate. The UFC should hand down a 6-month suspension until he gets, because he fell out of an event. It cost them money. It cost them a significant fight. 6-month suspension. A year suspension. On their own, separate from the commission, Pennsylvania's commission or any other commission. But to just say, guy, you're done, that makes you look bad, Dana, if the guy actually comes back and fights. And secondly, this is a scary situation now that the UFC now owns the number 2 competition in Strikeforce. And sure, there's other organizations out there like, Bellator, like Shark Fights, like some of the other companies overseas that provide options for people to fight in. But now the UFC is slowly taking control of the top a control or dominating position in the MMA community, fighters are going to be have less bargaining power and will be subject to basically whatever Dana White and the powers that be want them to do. And I think this is where a union would come in and it would help to give the fighters the ability to push back. I would actually like to see some kind of commission, like a board set up, combination of maybe a couple current fighters, a couple retired fighters, maybe a couple agents, managers, anything, a collective board who can come in and rule on these situations. So it's not just one. Maybe Dana has the overall say, but maybe this board could provide some insight, something that would just make it so it's not so much of a, I don't like you, you screwed us over, bye-bye, see you later. Yes, the UFC is a private club or private company owned by individuals, so again, they have the complete power over what they want to do. But if they want to become a competing, accepted worldwide sports league, you have to do things in a manner that suggests professionalism. And I don't think snap firings of people because of situations like this is something that gives off the image of being professional. That's just me. I could be wrong. I could get a cease and desist order. You never know, because that's the other thing. The UFC, this business of where Dana White and these guys, when people cover them in a negative light, and suddenly they no longer have press credentials, and you're no longer allowed to go to the events like certain major companies aren't allowed to anymore. That's garbage. Never once you can see Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the NHL, or like any of these other guys, go out and say, "Oh, Fox Sports, CBS, you one of your people wrote an article that shone a bad light on the NHL or NFL, whatever. Forget about coming and covering our sports our shows because you're not welcome anymore." No, that's bullshit. I've used that a couple times. But that's not right. This media, it's free speech. These guys give and provide secondary or at least bipartisan or unbiased, whatever you want to call it, viewpoints on a company like this, the UFC. I think we need more of this. So again, I think that's important. I think the UFC needs to get off its high horse a little bit and stop with this. We're banning you because you said something bad about us. I don't want to be your friend anymore because you took my cookies away on the playground. Garbage. That's just me. Whatever. Maybe if you don't hear from me again, you know what happened. Either way, that's that. Alright, and finally, before I check out for the evening, for the show, UFC 132 is this weekend. It looks fantastic. Uriah Faber, Dominic Cruz in the main event. My prediction show is already down. I predicted there are now 11 fights in the card. There's been an undercard fight added. I provided predictions for 10. I provided my regular 5 main card in-depth verbal predictions. But I also provided short little quibits, little explanations for my 5 picks on the undercard. I think the undercard are the best we've seen. And please, Dana White, the Fertitas, the UFC. I know we're seeing 2 on Spike this weekend. Find a way to get all the undercards on TV. Like I said in my Kamikaze countdown, I would pay $5 if they put them up as a pay-per-view. The preliminaries on a $5 pay-per-view you could buy and watch, or get them wherever. I would pay $5, or I would, I think it would be very worthwhile to watch the 5 fights. $1 a fight, excellent, absolutely. Make it happen. Do something. There's too much talent now going unseen. If you want to expand, get people watching all your fighters, because they might be attached to a Brian Bowles or a Takeya Mizugaki who are fighting this weekend on the undercard, or to an Anthony Njokuani or an Andre Winner, and they see these guys succeed in the undercard. Oh, I like his style, and next, he's on the main card in a month and a half on a live show, or 5 months from now on a live show. People say, "Oh, remember I saw him in the prelim, one of the best fights of the night that didn't actually get on the pay-per-view? I'm going to tune in and watch that." That's how you build your business. That's how you grow. The UFC, don't take business advice from me. The UFC is doing a fine job on their own. Either way, great pay-per-view this weekend. Check out my predictions. I will rebound from 3 and 5. I'm not going to guarantee it because that would just be stupid, because that would almost guarantee another failure. But I would hope that I will do better. Please tune in. As always, I appreciate all the comments. I see a lot of positive comments. I very much enjoy turning on my account and seeing all these people write such nice things about me. Very interesting. But lots of interesting things. I'm looking here now. I just got a post right now from one of my regular posters, 905 Justin. Might as well read it because I'm here. I'll give you this much, I predicted all 5 of the fights on the main card going to decision. He writes, "I really hope all these fights don't end the decision. I'm finding the prelims are more entertaining than the main card as of late. I guess they have more to prove as they are finishing their fights. Wow. Thank you, Just905 Justin. You just answered, or just put a comment in. Perfect. You just posted that right now. That I was just saying. We need to see these prelims. Dana White, make it happen. Anything else? Lots of people making comments and posting stuff, and again, I say that I appreciate it greatly. You know, lots of people. I'm not going to mention any names right here other than the one I just did. But take care, guys, and I'm out of here. Good luck this weekend.